Hi friends, I hope you all are doing well. My name is Juhi and I'm going to discuss my project DMVPN monitoring. So I shared the code for this project last year and this year I've come up with some improvisations. I hope this I hope you guys find this project useful. So without wasting any further time, let's get into the code. So let me share my screen. All the code for this project can be found on a GitHub repository, and it took me a lot of time to um, you know deliver this project. So I hope you find it useful, and I hope you are able to use this code in your day-to-day job and you know get some benefit out of it. So let's start with the DMVPN playbook. So as you can see, this text file here called DMVPN underscore playbook. So it starts off with the basic things. You define the host, that would be your inventory file, the devices that you want to connect to. Gather facts, no. Connection would be network CLI. And I'm using a Genie Parser role here. So basically, it's a brilliant and it's a ready-made tool. Because normally when you connect to a device using CLI, what you get back, in most cases, it's unstructured data. It's just a blob of text. And you need to do further processing of that data to convert it into a structured format like YAML, XML, or JSON. But the beauty of this parser is, and it's a community work. People all around the world, they have contributed to this great cause, and basically I've contributed to this Genie Parser library as well. And if you go to my YouTube channel, there's a video on how you can submit a parser, and you can write a parser and contribute to Genie Parser library. It's really very interesting. You must try it. Okay, so basically what it does is they are ready-made parsers, and you can just filter your output through the parser, and basically it gives you a structured data at the other end. So line number 6, let's go to vars, which is nothing but short form for variables. So you define your Ansible user, you define your Ansible password, and other parameters for SSH connectivity. You define the operating system because we're going to be working on iOS XE routers. The operating system would be iOS. And then if you want to get into the enable mode to get output from various show commands, we can ask Ansible to do that. So basically you just say become method enable. You need to define your enable password, Ansible command timeout, and make is Cisco. So these parameters basically tell Ansible, okay, are you ready? We're going to be working on a Cisco iOS XE router, and these are the credentials. This is the username, this is the password, this is the enable password. So you would need these three details if you were to log on to any device manually to collect that information. But since we are programming it, we are getting Ansible to collect this data for us. We need to define it in the playbook so that Ansible can connect to our Cisco iOS XE devices to gather the information. Right. So line number 16, tasks. So these are the list of tasks. So the hyphen on line number 17, the hyphen basically denotes a list. So we have defined a list of tasks for Ansible to go and execute on our Cisco iOS XE devices. Now, we define the devices from which we want to collect data into something called an inventory file. So We can have one router, we can have 5 routers, we can have 10 routers, as many as we like, but they all need to be defined in the inventory file, and it will run all the tasks. And this is the beauty of automation, that once you have manually defined it, once you have defined your network, and once you have defined the tasks that need to be executed on your devices, it's just a one-time effort, just a one-time effort. And basically, it will go and iterate through all the devices and execute these tasks for us. So let's get into the tasks. So line number 17, the first task in our playbook is to retrieve NHRPPS per VRF tunnel. So when you do show DMVPN on a Cisco router, when you execute this command, it will give you an output which can sometimes, in production network, it can run into hundreds and hundreds of lines. And trust me, if you were to manually go and collect this data per tunnel, it will really take you a very, very long time. And this is where the beauty of automation comes in. Basically, you're telling a machine to do it for you, and using the power of automation, because it computes so quickly, the output can be retrieved in a matter of seconds, right? So the iOS command, we're using the iOS underscore command module, which is an Ansible module to run Cisco commands on Cisco devices. So underneath iOS underscore command, there's another section called commands, and you execute the command show DMVPN. And register is nothing but you're just asking Ansible to hold the output of that command into a variable called show underscore tunnels. So say for example, you run the command show DMVPN. Normally, what we do is we copy and paste it into a notepad or a word pad. So in this case, it's storing that information somewhere, and that uh, variable is called show underscore tunnels, right? So further down, line number 22, where it says print show DMVPN output, and debug, line number 23. So debug is nothing but a way of saying print the variable. I would like to see what the output is. I would like to see the output, so I know that I'm on the right path. So if you've seen my previous videos, I always say that it's a very good practice to print the output as we go along. So line number 26, we say print show DMVPN output, and we are printing out show underscore tunnels dot stood out underscore lines. So it will display the output in separate lines. Line number 30, which is our next task, which is debug Genie filter. So up until this point, the output will be just, it will just be unstructured. It won't be in a structured format like JSON or XML. So it will just be, a normal output. And because we want a machine to interpret it or analyze it, we want it to be in a structured format so that a machine can understand it and it can further process the data. So in our case, we have to pass that information through a parser, which will magically, really, and this, I just love these ready-made Genie parsers because they are so handy and so useful. So basically, set underscore fact is a module that we'll be using, and we've defined whatever the outcome of this task would be. We have predefined that, listen, whatever the output will be from this task, could you please save it in parse underscore show underscore DMVPN variable. So basically, the show underscore tunnels dot stood out 0 output, which is from the previous task, we pipe it. Pipe is nothing but a short form of filter. When you want to convert data from one form to the other, you filter it. And filter it through what? Through the Genie library, which is called parse underscore Genie. And you need to define the command for which you need to which particular parser, because there are lots of commands. When you go on Cisco IOX XE devices, you can run so many commands. So how will the parser know which parser is it supposed to use to parse your data? So you need to define the command for which you're looking uh, for which you want to pass the data, which is DMVPN, and the operating system is the operating system, which is iOS XE. Guys, whilst we are on this topic, I just want to quickly share. So this is the details. I think it's basically you're not able to see it because it's shielded by this Zoom meeting bookmark, but I think I'll share the code with you after this call. So basically, this is how the website looks like, and this is called Parsers List. And because we are working with Cisco iOS XE devices, we just need to select XE from the drop-down menu. And basically, the quickest way is if you just do Control F, and if you just type show DM VPN, there you go. So you know that there is a parser, and we don't need to worry about these. I mean, this is how the beautiful community of Genie Parser library, they have defined it. They've done the work for us. All we need to do is invoke this parser from within our Ansible playbook using the lines that I just shared. Right. So let's go back to our code, and you delegate it to the local host. And then the next task is to print the Genie output. We would like to see that the magic has indeed worked and our data has been filtered or parsed into a nice format, into nice structured data. And then we save the parsed output in a file. So in here, I'm using the copy module, and the content is the data that I would like to save, which is parsed underscore show underscore DMVPN. And if you look, and if you go back to line number 32, this was a variable we chose to save all the past data in. So all we are doing is saving the output from that variable into this file. And the next task is save output in a file. So if you want to save it in a file, you just define the destination. So it can be anywhere you wish. It can be your home directory. It can be another subfolder, subdirectory. It's up to you. Absolutely up to you where you want to save your output. Now comes the the interesting bit, which is we have a past data. So step number one, let's take a step back. Step number one is just to run show DMVPN command on the root line, just get unstructured data, right? Just a blob of text. Step number two is to convert that unstructured data into a structured data so that machines can understand. Now, step number three is to cherry pick information from that structured data that is relevant to us and just filter out all the unwanted things. So we can do that using Jinja templating, right? Jinja templating. So if you see line number 43, we are saying just look for a file called Cisco test underscore dmvpn.j2. .j2 means Jinja templating. So we are asking it, just look for my Jinja template. I've defined my Jinja template by the name of Cisco test underscore dmvpn. And in that file, I've defined which bits I'm interested in. just extract those fields for me and just render a beautiful file which has all the interesting data uh, in it, and that is relevant to me, that I specifically need for my next stage of data processing, and just filter out the rest, just cut out the noise if you like. And the output file, which will have all these important details, will be saved in this destination folder, which is line number 44. And because we want to read and write from it, we just want to set the mode to 0744, so we can read, write, and execute the file. And connection local and ignore errors, yes. So ignore errors, basically what it is there are lots of tasks. Now sometimes what happens, a task is not successful. So what happens if a task is not successful? Ansible says, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to just abort the script and just stop? Or do you want me to just ignore this error and just move on to the next task? So ignore underscore errors colon yes basically means, if you encounter any errors, don't stop the script. Instead, just carry on with the next task defined in the playbook. Right. So let's talk about the Jinja templating, which basically cherry picks the important information from the structured data, and it just filters out the unwanted information that we're not interested in. So basically, this is how it looks like. Now, if you remember, I said that the output of the command can run into hundreds and hundreds of lines, right? So manually, if we were to manually work on that information, what we would normally do is start with line number 1. Okay, that is a tunnel name. It has 5 peers. Okay, then move on to line 2, line 3, and line 4. So we would iterate through the output line by line. So the equivalent of iterating through the output line by line is nothing but a for loop in a machine's language. So you say, can you just start a for loop? So imagine a robot is like, okay, line number 1, line number 2, line number 3, so on and so forth. So we are starting a for loop. So we are saying, for all the lines in the output, it can be 1 line, it can be 5 lines, it can be 100 lines, it can be 500 lines. For all the lines in the output, get me the tunnel name, and get me how many peers it has. And end for is, if you start a for loop, you have to end it. That's how it goes in Jinja templating. So it's a for loop. And also one interesting thing for for all the coders who are listening to this video, the output of the command or the data that you're working on is a dictionary. A dictionary comes with a key and a value. So our for loop, we are just we are just prepping it, say, listen, so the data that you're going to be working on is going to have a dictionary. It is going to have a key which goes by the name of int, and it is going to have a value which goes by the name of int underscore value. In this is the name of the data. Dot items basically means you're going to be dealing with dictionary, so be aware of it. And then just could you please filter the tunnel and how many NHRP peers it has. So that is how it works. And the next file down line is the inventory file, where you define your Cisco devices. And that's pretty much. I hope it's clear to you, and I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, you can always get in touch with me on my socials, but I hope I've made it clear. So this was version 1 of this project. Now let's see what version 2 has in store for us. So let's go back and let's uh, let's discuss the new version, which is version 1, Cisco. So I've saved it under the name of Cisco XC DMVPN Tunnel Monitoring version 1. So what have we added in this project? So in the previous project, we saw that we collected all the data and we just filtered out the tunnel name and how many NHRP peers it has. Excuse me. So in the new project, what I've done is the output that I've collected it in JSON format so that we can integrate it with a data analytics tool called JSON, called Elasticsearch, I beg your pardon. And it will just graphically display us details on all the tunnel. What time the tunnel went down, how many NHRP peers it has, how's the traffic looking like, is it congested, what's the capacity usage, all the details that you're interested in. You can just cherry pick them. And because the output that comes out at this end is from Ansible and it is going on to another platform called Elasticsearch, it becomes a machine to machine. So when there is a communication between machine to machine, it has to be structured data. So that's why the improvisation that we have done on the project is the output file that you saw in the for my previous project. We have rendered it into a JSON format so that Elasticsearch can understand it and absorb it into its database. So the playbook is more or less the same. The major difference is basically the Jinja template file, which I'm going to share with you here. So as you can see, I have included values such as timestamp because that's a very important field. You want to know when a particular incident happened. When did my tunnel go down? When did the errors started shooting up? When did it started showing signs of congestion? So timestamp. And there's a way you can pull the timestamp. So you can run the show clock command on your router and save the output in a variable. And once the Ansible knows that the output is saved in a variable, you can call that variable here in your Jinja template and you will get the timestamp. Then you need to know, when there's so many lines, you need to know which router you're looking at, which router are you talking about. And it's very handy when you're troubleshooting an issue. So host name basically tells you the device name that you're working on. Tunnel name, which tunnel are we talking about, on which device, and how many NHRP peers it has. So this is, as you can see, we have rendered this output into a JSON format. So JSON output basically starts with double quotes, end with double quotes, and that's what it is. And the playbook is more or less the same. So yes. The only thing I would say is in this playbook, because we are using timestamp value as well, there should be another task which will run the show clock output on the router. And you need to save that show clock output in a variable uh, which is used in your Jinja template, which will be show underscore clock underscore output dot stood out underscore lines underscore 0 underscore 0. So that will give you the timestamp on the router, which is very useful when you're troubleshooting any issue. You need to know what time something happened. Right. So that's all from me, guys, and I hope you find this project useful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on my socials, and I'll see you on my next video. Thank you.